Howdy! Right off the bat, I want you to know that this is not a tutorial. There's no such thing as a tutorial on how to terraform because every terraforming project is different. So consider this more like a video that your buddy made to help you get a little bit better at his favorite game. If you end up liking the video or finding it useful, consider giving a thumbs up and subscribing. It helps a bunch, and if you guys get me to 100 subscribers by the end of the year, I will do whatever the most liked comment on any of my videos tells me to, as long as it's doable in-game. Now, let's get to the video, shall we? Terraforming is a pretty broad term and includes all kinds of stuff, some of which I'm good at, like making natural landscapes, and some of which not so much, like trees and mountains. It also includes making bodies of water, creating cliffs, adding life to an otherwise dull area, or what I'm going to be focusing on today, building a biome from scratch. Now, building a biome from scratch sounds like a pretty daunting task at first, but if you plan it out right and follow my advice, it will still sound daunting. However, you should have a newly found confidence. First of all, you have to plan out your custom biome. Now, I'm not going to plan out for you, and you might even have it planned out already. And if that's the case, I suppose you can skip ahead to the next part if you want. But I will give you a couple of ideas. You could do a plains or forest biome, but let's be honest with ourselves, that's boring. And if you go commenting about how I made a forest biome in my last video, shut up. You could do a desert, a mesa, a rolling hills biome. Or you could do something completely out of this world, like a field with tall mushrooms that dwarf all the little trees underneath them, and a trickling stream rolling through the terrain. You could do a cloud land in the sky with a big bright castle and a rainbow. Or a Mars-esque landscape that can make even the most grounded want to fly up into your beautiful, otherworldly land. Or a Christmas wonderland that would make Whoville look like it was straight out of the dollar store. You could even do something completely ridiculous, like a cotton candy land where all the trees are lollipops and candy canes, and the water is made of hot chocolate. Or an apocalyptic land that's apocalyptic not from plagues or zombies or aliens or nukes, but because the world literally flipped upside down. The only limit of what you can turn your world into is your own creativity. And don't say, oh, but Larry, I'm not creative. Because everybody on this planet is creative. You just have to find what inspires you, what makes you want to create. If you haven't decided what to make yet, simply pause the video for a couple minutes and brainstorm in a meditative state, focusing on nothing but morphing your world into your most wonderful, fantastical perhaps, thing you can possibly think of. The only limit of what you can turn your world into is your own creativity. And don't say, oh, but Larry, I'm not creative. Because everybody on this planet is creative. You just have to find what inspires you, what makes you want to create. If you haven't decided what to make yet, simply pause the video for a couple minutes and brainstorm for a while, focusing on nothing but morphing your world into the most wonderful, fantastical perhaps thing you can possibly think of. Once you know what biome you want to make, then we can begin. The first step, like many of their first steps of big projects, is to break it up into smaller, little projects, quests, if you will. For example, instead of my goal looking like this, I could break it up into a few different goals so it looks more like this. That looks a lot more manageable, doesn't it? The second step is to plan out what it vaguely looks like. If you are doing a more complicated project, then I would suggest using different colored wool to outline each part of the build. It isn't necessary to use a wool or anything, but it does make it easier to visualize what you want the biome to look like when it's finished. The next step, after collecting the resources needed for the project of course, is to go through and place the base block of the biome. The base block being the block or blocks that makes up the ground, like the grass and the plains. Think of it as the canvas of your biome. The blank slate the artist turns into a masterpiece. Now, this could just be regular old grass, but it also could be something strange, like netherrack, or some kind of wool, terracotta, or even purple blocks. Although I might steer away from the latter. Those things are hideous. One thing I want to get straightened up for you is this. There are other ways to make a biome in Minecraft. After you put in all the base blocks, you can make one thing at a time. For example, you can make the trees, the creek, the cliffs, and then the greenery, like the bushes and such, going all over the biome, scattering out, kind of like that. Or you could go from one side to the other, perhaps even combine the two, which is how I do it sometimes. You are currently watching the side to side method, or I guess from front to back, it doesn't matter. I start with a front bit, work on the cliff, then the snow, then the waterfall and a little creek, followed by the trees, then I go into the other part of the biome where I make the continued creek, the path, the hills, the actual structures itself, and I finish the biome from front to back. I will say that you might find your own method that's different in some way to how I do it, and that is totally fine. But before you go gallivanting away to invent your own unique method, you might as well finish the video and test out my method to see if it works for you. Whichever way you choose... That's gotta be a typo. So whichever way you choose to make your biome, whether it's the one thing at a time method or the front to back method, that is the next step. And this will take a while, especially for more complicated biomes, so don't underestimate the project or you might get discouraged. The biggest challenge with projects like these is not the building, it's not getting discouraged and losing motivation. Without motivation, none of the huge projects would ever have been built, and that includes the island I am currently terraforming over in my survival series. At this point, your biome should be looking great, even if it is just a little empty. This is not necessarily a needed step, but if you were going to put any structures in your biome, then go ahead and do that now. There isn't much to say about this step, but there is one thing I will tell you, and it is very important. When you are designing your structures, whatever they might be, make sure that they fit into your biome seamlessly. You want them to look like they are part of the biome, not just in it. If you don't know what I mean by that, allow me to explain. If you were making a luscious, jungly forest biome, then you wouldn't want to put a modern-styled house made of concrete and lots of glass in it, because that would look pretty silly. Something that would work better with that biome would be something like a rustic old house, made with logs and some kind of stone, with some vines creeping up the wall showing its age. If you want me to make a video on how to build a rustic house in Minecraft, drop it in the comments and I shall deliver. You could even take it a step further and make something like a treehouse in a forest biome, or even a hobbit hole in a plains. After you put together your structures, then you have but one last thing to do. Finish the biome. Let me clarify this. Think of this step as turning the draft of your report into the final copy. It's the step where you go through and edit anything you don't like about the biome, and anything you don't think that looks natural, or even looks too natural, depending on how you want it to look and what the biome is. And you can add any extra details like shrubbery, maybe a little pond in that empty spot over there, and just otherwise tie it all up and make it look nice. However, don't change too much. If you're looking for things that don't look natural, that's all you'll be able to see, and you will want to change everything, so try to resist. Try to only change a few spots, just that one hill, the one cliffside, or the 2 or 3 trees that you didn't get quite as good as you wanted to. Not everything you build will look natural to you if you are looking for the unnatural. Heck, if you looked at an actual naturally generated landscape, you would probably find a bunch of spots that don't look natural to you if you were looking for the unnatural. The final thing to do is to give yourself a pat on the back, because you just made an entire custom biome. That is no small feat, and the hours it took you to build that biome prove it. So don't think small of it. Maybe you can show it to your friends, post it online for other people to see, or even post a link to it in the comments below. I would love to see a custom biome any of you guys make, and it would be really cool to know that this video might have helped. Just like that, you have reached the end of the video. I hope you guys have a fabulous Thanksgiving and eat plenty of pie. And with that, I will be back in 2 weeks. See ya.